we need to give you an update on the homeless situation here in Vancouver, Washington. Hey, welcome back to Living in Vancouver and Camas, Washington channel. I'm your host, Hannah Dubyne, and I'm thankful that you're here today because we're talking about a super important community subject, and that is homelessness. If you live on the West Coast, or really anywhere in the United States of America, you know that homelessness has been on the rise the last decade or so, and particularly on the West Coast, it's gotten pretty pronounced and it's gotten a lot of traction in the media. We've been notorious for extreme issues with homelessness, and it's been exacerbated by drugs over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people on the streets here all the way from California up to Washington, and it's just not good. Now, I want to be sensitive about the issue because who we're talking about here is actual humans, right? They are people, and our hope is for the world that those people who are experiencing this right now, they'll be able to come back from whatever hardships they're going through and re-assimilate into society. But we know that some people will never be able to come back. They are too addicted. They have too many mental health issues. So we have to look around as a community and say, how can we help this situation get better? And the reality is that a state and national government is too big to really tackle this issue, especially since it's so different from area to area. So we really need to be looking at what is our local government and community doing? This issue also really hurts my heart because for a living, I help people sell and buy homes. And I see firsthand that housing is one of the most important things in someone's lives. And it hurts to know that these people don't have any stable housing. And so we want to do what we can to get them somewhere stable. And so there's some good things going on in the community that I want to share with you today. The first thing I want to share with you is that Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, has what I think is a really nice program. It's called the StaySafe Communities, and they have 4 of them now around Vancouver. So they started with 1, and I think it's been pretty successful. So they've expanded to 2, 3, and now they're at 4. And what it is these little plastic pods that people get to live in, and they're very small. There's almost no room to stand up, but there's a bed, there's storage, there's a roof over their head, there's ventilation, and importantly, there's a community. They're all lined up together, and if you live in one of them, you have to take care of them. You have to be a community member that's contributing to that community of people. And there are community managers in each of those communities. I'm saying community a lot here, sorry guys, who basically keep everything under control, and their goal is long-term to get these folks that are living in these pods to stable long-term housing, get them moved into an apartment. I just saw an update on Instagram the other day actually from the city of Vancouver. It was an update from one of the community managers at the StaySafe community, sharing some of the successes they've had. I thought it was really heartwarming. Like, they showed some veterans who were disabled, who were, pretty old retirement age, who didn't have anything, and they lived in those StaySafe communities for a year or 2, and now they're moving on to permanent housing, which is literally exactly what we need, right? People who want to contribute to the workforce, who can contribute to society. We don't want them on the streets forever. We want to find a way to get them back into permanent housing. So I really love to see that, and I hope that we can see more of that. I know there are plenty of people who are not happy with the StaySafe communities, but there's always going to be people that are unhappy. I would much rather see a StaySafe community than I would a cesspool of a homeless camp, right? Where there's needles everywhere, there's tents everywhere, there's lawlessness, there's craziness going on. I would so much rather see the StaySafe community. If you want more information on this program, please feel free to do your own research. The next thing I want to share with you is that the city and the county also have more affordable housing grants available. Now, a lot of these incentives are geared towards developers and builders because they're the ones that control the housing supply, but there are also grants out there for, home purchasers or home renters. Granted, the ones that are available directly to consumers, if you're renting or purchasing a home, they're a lot harder to get, and I find that the funds are more limited. I have lots of opinions on this, right? Because I'm in the real estate world, because I'm very abreast of development in our county. I know that the costs to develop housing here are just getting more and more expensive every year. And it's not necessarily because builders are greedy. It's because the county and the state keep imposing more restrictions, more regulations, and those cost more money. And so naturally the cost has to be passed on, and naturally housing becomes more unaffordable. And so they have been good about passing through some of those grants and tax incentives to developers and builders. What those incentives do a lot of times is they will say to the developer or the builder, hey, we're gonna give you $10 million, whatever the number is, $1 million, if you keep X% of units, affordable units, for the next 10 to 20 years, we're gonna give you this stipend. And so that's what's happening right now. I think the reality is that it's gonna be very difficult for us to catch up and create affordable housing for everyone here. We are a state that has urban growth boundaries. We artificially restrain the supply of homes, which is unfortunate overall. And I don't know how we're ever gonna get away from that, but they are doing things to try to improve it. What we are gonna see going forward is we're gonna see more dense housing options. Sorry, I know I'm going off into a tangent here about housing. What can I say? I'm a realtor. I love talking about this kind of stuff. But we're gonna see more dense housing options. We just had a new code pass this week, actually, about restricting the size of lots and making them smaller. And so builders are gonna have smaller lots. It's gonna be easier for them to build cottage housing, to build plexes, to build apartments, things like that. Another program I really like to share about helping with the homelessness here in Clark County is Family Promise and other nonprofit, privately funded organizations. Family Promise is one that I was involved with for a little bit, so I know a little bit more about them. But of course, there are many others here. There's like Council for the Homeless and handfuls of others. But the goal of Family Promise is to rehome families, not just individuals, but their true mission is families, people with kids, and get them from living in their cars or living on the streets to living in some sort of permanent residence and having a stable job. And I really love seeing their program. They take them through training and they house them until they can get into that more permanent housing situation. Organizations like Family Promise, they don't take individuals with like extreme drug issues. That's not really their clientele. They're working on those folks who they're super close and they just barely got booted out to the streets, and they're trying to reintegrate them, which I think is really important. As I mentioned, these organizations are privately funded, so they have nothing to do with the government. I think they probably do get some local grants as part of their funding, but a lot of their funding comes from community members, fundraisers, local churches. And so if it's something you feel called to contribute to, definitely do. Definitely do. Now, where I'm starting to see homeless issues crop up more is around the freeway on and off ramps. I think of like I-5 and Mill Plain. I think of I-5 and 205. I think of a couple exits off the 500, 500 to St. John's. There's always someone down there screaming and yelling. That's kind of where we're seeing it right now, unfortunately. And those areas have become pretty dirty, littered with trash, some tents around, but it's nothing like Portland still. It is absolutely nothing like Portland, and I am of the belief that we are not going to become Portland because we're so much different as a community here in Clark County than we are in Portland. We have so different values. We have, more balanced politics, which helps us keep things in line a little bit. I drive over the river to Portland only probably once every month or two. And whenever I do, I'm definitely in shock because it's just completely littered and trashed everywhere. There's really outrageous things happening on the streets. There's so much graffiti happening. And thankfully, we just don't have that here. Now, I'm also a realist. I'm not over here pretending that with each passing year, everything gets better and it gets more clean and there's less homeless people. The reality is there are more with each passing year. I have belief in our local government that they're gonna do the right thing and that Clark County is gonna come together and, make it happen. If you live in Clark County now, I'd love to hear what you think about the homeless situation. I know a lot of you who watch our channel, thank you so much for watching, by the way. You've lived in Clark County for literally decades and you probably have a different outlook on it than maybe someone that moved here 5 or 10 years ago. We thank you so much for watching, and if you are looking to relocate to or list your home in Vancouver, Camas, or Clark County, Washington, myself and my team would love to be of service to you. So please reach out to us, send us a text, send us an email, send us a DM on Instagram at Hannah Dubyne, and we can't wait to see you next week.